Brexit, let's join him. He's been to the Council of the European Union.
And are working on the two last measures that still need to be adopted, namely on short-term visas and the EU budget for 2019. The House of Commons also voted in favour of an extension of Article 50 period. If Prime Minister May requests such an extension before the European Council on Thursday, it will be for the 27 leaders to assess the reason and the usefulness for an extension. EU leaders will need a concrete plan for the UK in order to be able to make an informed decision. And key questions will be: does an extension increase the chances for the ratification of the withdrawal agreement? Will the UK request an extension because it wants a bit more time to rework the political declaration? Ladies and gentlemen, I recall that this political declaration, which sets out the framework from our future relation, could be made more ambitious in the coming days if a majority in the House of Commons so wishes. If not, what would be the purpose and the outcome of an extension? And how can we ensure that at the end of a possible extension, we are not back in the same situation as today? In any case, the European Council will need to assess what is in the best interest of the EU. Extending the uncertainty without a clear plan would add to the economic cost for our businesses, but could also incur a political cost for the EU. It is for the British government and Parliament to decide very quickly what the UK wants to do next. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And now we can open the floor for questions. Due to time restraints, we will take 4 questions. Bruno, please.
Mr. Chamba, you said that David Lidington had been around earlier on. He's playing a leading role for the government, certainly here today. What did he tell you? Are you going to be receiving a letter from Theresa May requesting extension tomorrow, as expected? Did he give you any indication of what she might say or when she might say it? And Mr. Barnier, you highlight the government will need to set out a concrete plan for an extension, presumably particularly if it's a lengthy one, if a withdrawal agreement is not yet ratified. What form would that concrete plan take? Would it be a commitment to best endeavours to make sure that those conditions were met? And is there still a plan to publish the so-called room paper setting out the EU's conditions for an extension this evening?
So, for the question addressed to me, I think what I wanted to say is that we are fully engaged with the British side. We are looking forward to get a more clear picture, and we are looking forward as well to see what is going to be coming in the upcoming days. If it's about the letter, I think it's up to the Prime Minister to announce, and it has to be a decision that has to be supported, has a political will and the political support behind it. Whatever is going to be in the letter, if it's going to be a letter.
Moi, je suis pas là pour.
I'm not here to discuss the possible duration of a possible extension. I'm here, as I was here talking to the ministers, to ask a very legitimate question on behalf of the European authorities, which is, why do you want an extension? What for? What's the objective of an extension? What use would it be? An extension has to be useful. It has to be useful if we are to achieve what we've been working towards very carefully, which is an orderly withdrawal for the United Kingdom. Now we'll wait and see whether the UK government does actually ask for an extension, and if so, why they would wish to have that extension. So the EU authorities want to know what the underlying political process, which would be the grounds for that extension, would be. A political process within the House of Commons or in the general political debate in the UK. I really don't feel I should go into any more detail or speculate on it at this stage. All I would say is it is our duty to ask whether this extension would be useful, because an extension will be something which will extend uncertainty, and that uncertainty costs. It has a cost for everybody, and we can't prolong uncertainty without having a good reason for it.
Please.
Thank you very much. A question to you both, please. Mark Stone from Sky News. There is a suggestion that Mrs. May is going...
It's okay.
There is a suggestion that Mrs. May is going to ask for both a short extension and a long extension, a long one that can be made shorter if there's a breakthrough, effectively asking for both. I know, Michel Barnier, it's not your decision on an extension, but as someone who is at the heart of this process, what is your view about the idea of a short extension that can be extended or a long one that can be cut short? And the same question to you, please, sir.
So may I? As I said, it's not for us, it's going to be for the leaders, and they have to assess, exactly as Michel Barnier said, what is the cost of opportunity. So at the end of the day, we have to see what we are gaining and how this is going to fit in the united position of the 27 that we once more mentioned today, and it's very clear about which are the ways you could have an orderly withdrawal of UK from the Union. So I think it's very important that it makes sense, it's useful for the purpose, and in this end, these are the benchmarks and these are the criteria, be it short, be it long, be it one or the other. These are going to be the criteria that are going to be assessed. They are going to be assessed, any kind of proposal by the leaders that I am confident to. And of course, what is the cost of opportunity, as mentioned, for the businesses, for the economics of both sides, and in the same time, as I would try to repeat that the Romanian presidency has done its best to prepare as much as we can the EU, and I think we are close to finalize all the contingency planning in place. So this is going to be one way to prove that what EU can deliver is that we have already the contingency planning in place. Thank you.
The issue of an extension is not a dogmatic or ideological issue. We, for our part, have never been dogmatic or ideological during these negotiations, in fact, and certainly at this point, after having come so far, we're certainly not going to change our approach to that now. It's a practical issue, considering the very serious political situation the UK finds itself in. And here I continue to have full respect for the sovereignty and the procedures in the UK and in its parliament. But the issue is whether, with the support of the British Parliament, the UK government may wish to request such an extension, whether it be short or long. You said both short and long. Well, it's either one or the other, isn't it? But the real question is, what is the purpose of it? What's it for? It's the reason for such an extension, the objectives of such an extension, which will determine its duration or which will explain its duration. So for our part, we will continue to ask for this reason, the reasons why, and then objectively proceed to analyze the consequences of such an extension, because an extension does have consequences. My feeling is that, as I said to the ministers, a longer extension needs to be linked to something new. There needs to be a new event, or a new political process. Obviously, I cannot attempt to preempt such a process, which we're not familiar with at this time.
Thank you. The gentleman over there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Lawrence Norman of the Wall Street Journal. I just want to go back to the answer you just gave, Monsieur Barnier. You said, I think, it can't be both a request for a short and a long extension, that the leaders will not agree to both. Is that right? Did I get you correctly?
Non, vous n'avez pas bien compris ce que j'ai dit.
I don't think you've understood what I said. I was not giving a view in the place of the heads of state and government there. Your colleague said that there might be a request for long and short at the same time. Well, I'm a simple soul. So we'll just have to see. What's she going to ask for, Mrs. May? Is it going to be a short extension or a long extension? And particularly, for what purpose? I do not want to prejudge the decision which will be taken by the heads of state and government. There are various possible scenarios, possible formulae. Heads of state and government will have to decide on the basis of the precise request made by Mrs. May and the justification for this extension. Extension means more uncertainty. It will lengthen the process of uncertainty, and this will have a cost. And whether it's a short period or long period will also have repercussions on the cost. And you also have to remember the consequence in terms of the European elections in May in the countries of the European Union. Our citizens have rights which have to be respected. There's the issue of the autonomy of the decision-making of the EU 27. If you look at the instability around us, if we have a long extension, we are concerned about the major challenges which Europe has to face. So these questions will be asked by European leaders. I can't jump the gun on what their answer will be or what questions they will put to Mrs. May. I can only imagine that they will ask Mrs. May why she wants an extension, for how long she wants that extension.
Bună seara, Cătălin Deacu, Televiziunea Română.
Cătălin Deacu, Romanian TV. I have a question to both speakers. If there is an extension of the deadline, what will happen? Will the UK be in the situation to organize elections for the EU Parliament?
Of course, I think this is exactly what we were saying, that, you know, we have to respect the treaties, and I think whatever is going to be done, it has to be for a reason, and as well, if it's for a reason, it has to be in full respect of the treaties and of the obligations that we have undertaken, all the EU 27 to observe. Așa că, to be more short, este evident, it's very clear from the treaty that after 30 of June, you have, legally speaking, there is an obligation to be, whoever is present in the Council, to be present in the European Parliament too.
I don't have much that I wish to add to George's reply.
Les États membres de l'Union, au moment des élections, ont des droits et des obligations.
When it comes to the elections, the EU's member states have rights and obligations. The citizens living in these countries also enjoy the right to vote. There are 3.5 million European citizens living in the UK, many of which have reached the age at which they can vote. The same applies to the 1.5 million or so UK citizens living in EU countries. So these citizens will wish to avail themselves of their rights when the elections take place. And if the country that they live in has decided or hasn't decided, or has left the EU or not, well, you've also got to take into account, in replying to this question, the time that each country needs materially to be able to prepare itself for the elections to take place. So, well, that's all I can say. I don't have a reply to that question, because the reply would differ in the case of the UK, depending on whether it's decided in time to leave the EU or not, whether it's ratified or has not ratified the treaty on the basis of which it wishes to leave the EU.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.